student athletes. So you would see a lot of student athletes in certain majors.
Oh yeah,
Instead of, just throwing it like you won't see as many in the criminal justice majors. You'll see more of us in the sports management or,
right.
the kinesiology. And instead of
Mhm.
being pushed into some of the other majors, it was, stay confined, business management, sports management,
Yep.
something in marketing, things like that. So that was another thing that was really interesting because you also see that at other institutions as well, that student
Mhm.
athletes are kind of pushed into certain directions. And if you're trying to venture out, it's it's a struggle unless you have a coach that's really willing to work with you.
We literally just had this conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Our first podcast, we literally just dove into the subject.
And it's so sad that we end up sending our student athletes back home once they graduate or once they actually just get done because they half of them don't graduate. They send them back home with an overdeveloped body and an underdeveloped mind, and they can't do anything to help their community, let alone themselves.
Exactly.
Welcome everyone. You are back to the Transformation Lab. We call it the lab, and today we got another wonderful guest with us. And I'm here with Dr. E once again.
What's up, you guys? So happy to see you. I'm so excited about this podcast. We have an amazing person who has come to share their journey, to let us know how they transformed from an amazing student athlete from Troy University in track and field, doing the long jump, NCAA qualifying winner. Definitely all conference, junior, senior year. He's gonna tell you a little bit more about his about what he did while he was a student athlete, and then how he transpired and transformed himself into the man that he is today, working as an athletic director inside a Division I athletic department. So please, Mr. Myles, take the stage and let us know your story.
I appreciate y'all first for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited just to get to talk to both of you guys again. But a little bit about me. Originally from Birmingham, Alabama. Uh, did my undergrad and grad school at Troy University. While I was there, ran track and field. I was a long jumper, triple jumper. They tried to get me to run. That wasn't going to happen for me. But yes, I was able, as they mentioned, all conference my junior and senior year in track and field. For me, that was huge as well. Transitioning post collegiate, I was able to compete for a year while I was up here nationally. So being able to compete at the USA indoor championships, as well as getting an opportunity, although things didn't work out quite as well, but to get my dual citizenship to run and represent Grenada. So track and field was very good to me. I will say that.
Yes, it was very good to both of us.
Absolutely.
Right. Oh man. So once you finally got done with track and field, was it a hard transition to go from track and field to the real world?
I will say for me personally, it was just because being locked, I had been running track since I was 7 years old. So I, majority of my life was wrapped into track and field. My plans, after college, of course, every Division I athlete, in my opinion, has, in the back of their mind, aspirations to go to
the
That's why.
So, of course, for me, that was, my primary focus, and had a pivot within when I moved to Nashville. Received an opportunity from one of my mentors, the late Vice Chancellor Williams, to actually be a graduate assistant at Vanderbilt, working in their marketing department. And doing that at the time while competing, but also, learning where I wanted to go within my career. I said I was blessed to have that opportunity to compete and say, I got to compete post collegiate and be a professional athlete. But I was able to mentally transition pretty well. But in terms of just like the physical part, I was so used to having a stringent schedule, being outside, being active, competing, practicing, all of this. And now it's, the flip side. You're on the business side of athletics. So
Right.
for me, it was a whole new learning curve. I didn't know, I knew my administration when I was in undergrad, but I didn't know exactly what they did. I knew my academic advisors kept me eligible, but I didn't
Right.
know, their day-to-day. Right. So it's like I knew the day-to-day, but I didn't understand, all that went into athletics from the business side. So for me, it's like I kind of hit the ground and I felt, really green, really new within the space. So trying
Right.
to soak in the knowledge, but at the same time trying to use aspects from, my track and field, being a competitor and, learning, trying to grow, but also, still working in the realm of student athletes so that, that competitive spirit could still kind of live vicariously through them, but also in what I
Yes.
was doing. So for me, it took about, I would say about a year and a half for me to fully kind of like ingrain myself into what I was doing and kind of, let go of, trying to play the flag footballs, still hold on to that athletic side of things and kind of, put those things away and kind of focus more on, my career path. But yeah,
Right.
after about like a year and a half being at Vanderbilt, I was able to really get comfortable and start learning and growing within my field.
Yes.
And I want to do like a little pivot, a little backtrack, because I don't want to go over the fact that they said you was a two-time champion junior senior year, or what was that? Let's
Yeah,
speak on that
all
process of
conference
growth.
my junior and senior year.
Yeah.
Lost my conference championship by a quarter of an inch, 1 centimeter. But I was
Man.
able to, also become second team All American that last year as well. So
Oh, that's good. Congratulations to that.
Hey,
That's an
thank you,
accomplishment.
thank you.
I like that.
I understand that
You
one
keep it going.
centimeter.
Yeah.
I was 1 centimeter away from taking my from taking the national record in Ghana.
Oh
Yeah,
wow, I know.
one
Look,
centimeter.
that's a different level of pain. Folks don't understand. It's literally
Right? Like, yo, that's a mismark.
right. It's like y'all know y'all could have moved the stick just a little bit,
Exactly. I had at least a foot left in the ring anyways.
Right. They know.
Oh my gosh. And I don't think I ever said this on this podcast. Yeah, I did track and field at Kent State. I was a walk-on. Oh man, I was a walk-on. My first year, it was a struggle. I wasn't really good until I really set myself down and said, okay, I need to figure out how to get the scholarship because I don't have financial aid and I don't have the money. You know what I mean? I was not recruited. I didn't have supposedly, you know what I mean? Like what it takes. But when I tell you I went from the bottom of the totem pole, I mean to a point where my coach used to send me down to the other end of the track and say, how about you go practice down there? I'm talking about for like 1 or 2 years straight. Just go down there and go practice. And I don't want you to kill nobody. To top 3 championship at our conference. I'm talking about he was not expecting it. I was either second or third place. Yeah. Oh, I did such a great job, and I was still mad. He was like, "You were still angry." My goal was to be first. Duh. But yeah, definitely just the struggle was real with track and field with me. And then also after that, being able to get on my Olympic team for Ghana. So I definitely feel and know like the transition that you had to take, getting that dual citizenship, that isn't always, the easiest. But yeah, no, I feel
paperwork is a long process.
Man, it's crazy because I applied maybe like a year ahead of time for the dual citizenship, and then the ambassador of Ghana called me and was like, "Hey, did you get your dual citizenship done yet?" I said no. He's like, "Okay, just call this person and tell them that I said this." I said, "Excuse me." My father was trying to get that number.
Look, I wish I had that same look with you, because I applied probably about 8 months before the Rio Olympic Games. I had hit the B standard, and at the time, Grenada didn't have anyone represented in long jump. So I was like, okay, I'm a shoe in. So, but lo and behold, conversations, things get lost in translation. We're over here trying to, get paperwork in, and May rolls around. It's like, we're getting close to deadline. So it's definitely one of those things where if you don't stay on top of it and don't have people on the other side staying on top of it, you can lose your opportunity. So it's definitely one of those things.
You know, it's funny. I was training post collegiately, and I just wanted to be on the Ghana track and field team, and I could not get in contact with these people for nothing. Okay, so I found an article that was written about them maybe about 3 or 4 years ago from the time from that date. I contacted the author of the paper, and they gave me a number that they happened to have, and I called the coach. But I've been telling everybody for like a whole year, oh yeah, I want to go on the track and field team. I'll go to the Olympic. I compete for the Olympic team. They couldn't tell me nothing. And
but
then,
hey, you spoke life into it, and hey,
I sure did. And I trained my behind off. I seen what number I had to hit. I said, bet.
Look.
Oh my gosh! So yes, the struggle is real. So you spoke that you went to Troy, right? At Troy, what was the demographic like for you? Like what did you see like in the classroom versus at track practice when it came to ethnicities on the field?
I would say Troy as a whole, it's a PWI, so predominantly white institution. So within the classroom setting, primarily white, and then on the track and field side, with the exception, of course, cross country, but we had, it was majority African American. And I will say it was also interesting to see how they also segmented and grouped student athletes. So you would see a lot of student athletes in certain majors. Instead of, just throwing out, like, you won't see as many in the criminal justice majors. You'll see more of us in the sports management or, the kinesiology. And instead of being pushed into some of the other majors, it was, stayed confined, business management, sports management, something in marketing, things like that. So that was another thing that was really interesting, because you also see that at other institutions as well, that student athletes are kind of pushed into certain directions. And if you're trying to venture out, it's a struggle unless you have a coach that's really willing to work with you.
We literally just had this conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Our first podcast, we literally just dove into the subject.
And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, she's an engineering major. And I was like, okay, so did you see anybody inside your classes? She was like, well, maybe did you see any athletes in the classes? That was a question. And she's like, well, maybe inside like my gen ed classes, but I don't think I've ever seen an athlete in my class. Come to think of it, I said, yeah, I know. It is frowned upon.
It is.
Like, what?
Because
you want to do something with your life? I'm not playing.
Exactly.
Not on my watch.
But that's what it is. God. People, you think you're a student athlete going in, and when you're at the D1 school, a lot of times you're an athletic student.
Yes.
And you got to quickly realize, hey, the parameters, not saying that there aren't coaches that aren't willing to work and that you can't do it, but it's a lot more challenging when you are a student athlete. There are already certain majors they're already trying to look to put you in because they're able to work around your class schedule a little bit better, or they know it's not as strenuous, so that you can
you already got deals with the teacher so you get them A's.
Right. Look, don't tell on everybody.
I know, right? You're like, hold on, edit that out. Oh gosh. So a lot of times people don't realize that student athletes graduate. Now we do graduate at a kind of a higher percentage than the regular student. So like if you're an African American male, you'll graduate at a 40% graduation rate just as a regular student. And if you're a student athlete, you graduate at a 55% graduation rate. Now, even though that's great, we have a little 15 extra points. I still expect more. Like, I don't want to look to the left and to the right and know that, like,
40 and 55 is
because
still
the graduation rate for all student athletes, like, it's a good 98%.
Right.
But when you look at the outliers, which is normally us, we're the ones who's not graduating. That look to the right, look to the left, they're normally talking about us. Exactly. And we're not going to be the ones crossing the finish line. But it's crazy it's amazing that we do graduate at least 15% more. But I think it's because of the additional classes they will always give us. Like, I don't know about you, but I had track and field a couple times.
I had jogging class.
Jogging, right?
I had 2 jogging classes and a yoga class. Although the yoga class was very beneficial, I did need that, for the stretching aspect. But yeah, I had yoga and 2 jogging classes.
And I think if it wasn't for those like general classes, I don't know if the student athletes would graduate as, as high, or to make sure that we're staying in line because they need us for competition.
Exactly. And a lot of times you see it to where as long as you have those hours, if it's between, as a freshman at 18, all that seem to matter or care about is keeping you eligible and not, making sure that you're successful when you leave here. It's what you're doing while you are here.
Right. That is so correct. So did you have any mentors while you were in college that helped push you, more professionally?
Let's start with Troy. Was there anybody at that PWI that mentored you to help get you through that?
In all honesty, no. Well, I did outside of my coach that we had. I'll give Coach Davis a lot of credit. He, African American head coach, track and field coach for us, as well as director of cross country and track and field operations. He was the one that was really behind all of us in regards to making sure that we had a plan, whether it was, post collegiate or what we were looking to do after to set us up for success. So I'll give him a lot of credit in regards to that. But even, like I said, within the classroom, it was limited because at the end of the day, he was our coach. So he could give us, the life advice. But in terms of that day-to-day in the classroom, it was a little bit different. It was almost, you found your peers, you found the groups, and you bonded off of the struggle trying to get through it together type of deal.
Yes. Yeah, that right there. And then also having someone African American, you know what I mean? A lot of times when we see us, then we kind of already, I'm sorry. Well, especially when I was a coach, when I see my student athletes, I'm just like, hey, I already know what they're struggling with. I already know to make sure that you're on task. I already know you do classroom checks to make sure you're in there. And you make sure you have tutoring and have the academic support to make sure that you're flourishing. Sometimes when there's a lot of other demographics that are inside the top offices, they don't know how to be more hands-on for their African American or minority student athletes. And I think that's why the graduation rates are so low, because they find it, I think they just made it find it hard to figure out how to graduate us. I think that's their number one struggle.
No, absolutely. I'll say during my time at Troy, I actually had 2 head coaches. So my freshman and sophomore year, we had one coach. Then the coach I mentioned, Coach Davis, our African American head coach, he came in my junior year through my redshirt senior year. And you could, like you were saying, the relatability is a lot different. Coach Davis, African American coach, but he came from Yale. So he had seen academics at the highest level, being at the Ivy League school as a coach. But also, so he could relate to us still being in the space of, hey, you were, one of the few Black faces in a predominantly white space. How is it, even at that level? and then, pushing us in an academic sense because he knew we're coming from an Ivy League, how to push us in the classroom as well as on the track. But like you were saying, that being able to relate, just to, pop into coach's office and be like, what's up, coach? And, be able to just, talk, and not have to feel like you're, either putting on a face or, not feeling like you can be 100% yourself. And it's not a knock to anybody or anything. It's just that, being able to connect, that commonality of, being an African American in a predominantly white space, it really does make a difference.
Oh no, for real. I think that's one of the things that when we were talking about David Williams earlier, I absolutely love David Williams. I mean, applause to him. May he rest in peace. He is so amazing. But everything that he instilled in us, I mean, every time I go to like a football game or a basketball game, he'd be right there. Hey, come here, let me talk to you real quick. You know what I mean? To let us know, hey, this is the struggle. Like he was the first Black, for anybody who does not know him, he was the first Black African American to be an athletic director for the SEC. And he told me when he goes to these athletic conferences with all the other athletic directors, he noticed that all the African American athletic directors will always, end up migrating together. That's, just how we do.
Right.
But every time he will get in that circle, it's always a serious conversation on how we're going to graduate our student athletes. Like, how are we going to graduate us? Because we know there's a problem and we are having, problems trying to fix it. But we know we can fix it together. He said anytime he'll go to another table, they're always talking about how much money they make, how much money that they're bringing in because of how many student athletes they got there. But they never talk about the graduation or retention rates of these student athletes. And it's so sad that we end up sending our student athletes back home once they graduate or once they actually just get done, because half of them don't graduate. They send them back home with an overdeveloped body and an underdeveloped mind, and they can't do anything to help their community, let alone themselves.
Exactly.
So yeah, that right there it's so sad. It's so sad to see, and that's exactly what we're trying to change. That's why we have the podcast, to give that mentorship. Because I don't know about you, but I think I needed some mentorship when I was in college. I don't think I realized it.
No,
but if
big
someone
time.
offered it to me, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like someone who's actually in my field.
No, I understand 100% in terms of needing a mentor and what Vice Chancellor Williams meant to me in that regard. Because, and I'll tell you this story actually of how I ended up getting to Nashville and working here. So my redshirt senior year, I was competing. I was also, in my master's program, but at the time, my focus was on track and field because in my head, I was going pro. This was my last year. I was actually, at the time, second team All-American. So I was like, in my head, I'm going pro. I'm just in school just so I can compete. so my mindset was not focused. And it did, unfortunately, because of that, I ended up getting a C in one of my classes. And, of course, in the master's program, you get a C.
Mm-hmm.
You are eligible for a term. And so it ended up happening right when I was going to right when I was going to NCAAs. I got the phone call saying that, Myles, you won't be eligible to compete because of the C that you got. So as a result, I ended up, because of that, going to my little sister's graduation, and that's actually how I met Vice Chancellor Williams. And he asked me, what are you doing this summer? And I told him nothing. He was like, did you want a job? I said, yes. So, right. And so it ended up turning out, being a blessing in disguise. But like I said, had I had a mentor in college that, showed me the value, look, you need to be able to build your brand as well as focus on keeping the main thing, which is you're here for school. Yes, you can compete, but at the end of the day, no one's going to be able to take that degree away from you. So
thank you. That's why I got that DR in front of my name.
Exactly.
First of all, I wasn't going back. But second of all, I knew they couldn't take it away from me, and I can utilize it anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's my thing in terms of, I wish I did have a mentor. Granted, I'm glad I was able to find a mentor as a result of that.
Right.
But yes, I think it's something that's really needed, especially at the collegiate level. You can even go as early as like senior year of high school going into college, just because now when you look at now high school kids are eligible for NIL opportunities.
Yes.
So it's a lot of things in terms of just being able, it's a lot of distractions for these kids nowadays, even more so than, when you and I were competing in undergrad. So I think mentorship is definitely needed in this time.
Yes. I know for David, how I met him was I looked him up and I was like, oh my gosh, we have a Black athletic director for the SEC in my own town in Nashville. So I was like, well, I want to try to see if I can get him to help me out with my dissertation because I was doing my doctorate. So I just called his secretary and said, hey, I would like to, have a meeting with Dr. David Williams because he was a doctor. And he said, and the secretary said, okay, I'll put you on the schedule. I said, okay, great. Like, damn, was that easy? So he called on me at least 3 times, right? And then he called me and said, do I know you? And I said, no, sir, you don't. He was like, how'd you get on my schedule? I said, I just called and she put me on your schedule. And she was just like, he was like, you know what? I feel so bad that I canceled on you 3 times already that I want to go ahead and accept your meeting. I said, really? He said, yes. I said, okay, great. I went up to his office. Oh, I was so scared. And so he heard my story. He knew I did track and field. He knew I was doing my doctorate. And then he said, so what did you do in track? I said, I was a thrower. He was like, okay. You ever thought about being a throws coach? I said, yeah, I used to be a throws coach at Tennessee State University. He was like, oh, okay, well, we have a position open. And I said, oh, that is so tempting. I said, don't do that, David. Don't do it. Because, when we see money, we'll say, forget the degree.
Right. Look,
I got mine.
I can come back. Right. You'll say that.
I know, right? I said, I'm not that type. I really have to stay focused on this degree. He was like, wow. I don't think I ever had anybody tell me no before. I was like, I know, but I really have to stay focused on this degree. But I would love to have you as a mentor to help mentor me through, just give me some more background knowledge that I can't Google and get off the internet. Because you've been there, done that. Like, matter of fact, you are the legacy.
Yeah, 100%. Knowledge is the best.
Oh man, exactly. So after you graduated and then you got to Vandy, how was it like working at Vanderbilt? And then how did you transition to the position that you are at today?
So my time at Vanderbilt, I was at Vanderbilt for a total of 4.5 years. I enjoyed it. At the same time, it did present its challenges. I'll give it that, just because, like I said, being at Vanderbilt, you are in one of those spaces where, especially even in the athletics department, if you're not a coach for football or men's basketball, we'd actually counted before I had left. I remember one of our all staff meetings, we actually counted those that weren't coaches who were African American. There was only 8 of us across the whole board.
Were you counting me?
Really, 8, 9, like 9. It was literally 8, 9 of us, and it was, like I said, a couple in academic support, myself, in fan engagement. We had someone in the ticket office, but like I said, we were so spread out. And it's one of those things where you felt it, even if it was, 4 of us gathered in a place, someone else was going to see or say something. And it wasn't like a bad thing. It was just no one was used to singing. So it was like whenever they saw us congregate, it was like, oh, out of curiosity, what's going on over here type deal.
Right?
But no, it was never, malicious or anything like that. It was just out of kind of genuine curiosity, just because, like I said, it was so few of us within that space. But I do give Vice Chancellor Williams and Dr. Candice Lee a lot of credit, because even though it was like that, they made sure to never make us feel alone. They both had a very open door policy where, like you were saying, you could get on their schedule, or you could just, if you had a key card to walk into their office, knock on the door and, say hi to Miss Angie, their assistant, and, go in and speak. And that was something that made it a lot more comfortable, was knowing that, hey, the head person in charge, they look like me, and I can go talk to them whenever I want to.
Whenever
I have you on speed dial. And so that was the thing. And I didn't really realize how much I needed that until I actually left Vanderbilt. Just because, like I said, you're in that space and you're thankful for it, but you're not realizing how much or how helpful it really was. Because, like I was saying, you're isolated. I was, the only African American in my department. And we had, a lot of others that were scattered and few and far between. So it was one thing just adjusting to that. Of course, me graduating from a PWI, I was used to kind of already being in those spaces. But at the same time, Vanderbilt's different. You're talking about, the Harvard of the South, and you're in the Harvard of the South, and you're in the SEC. So you're talking about, premier academics, premier athletics. So the standard, it's a little bit different. And the way you have to go about business and handling business, and, the code switching, you've got to learn it. And it's something that you have to do in order to manage, function, and continue to move up in that space. And so, like I said, I was appreciative of being able to learn and navigate within, and of course, like I said, being able to lean heavily on my mentors, Dr. Candice Lee, Vice Chancellor Williams, and that open door policy, because it really helped me just to kind of have that safe place and knowing, hey, the head man, head lady, boss lady in charge, they want me here. And regardless, of how uncomfortable people may feel or I may feel in certain spaces, I know that the person running our athletics department has my back. That's something that was so important, because you don't see that across Power 5, Group of 5. I think it's only 15 or so athletic directors across Power 5, Group 5 athletics that are African American. So you don't see it. And so it's really important to have that.
That's one thing I like about Vanderbilt, how they replaced Dr. Williams, the late Dr. Williams, with Dr. Lee. I thought that was great.
Hold on.
In the family.
They did try to replace it with, what was the guy's name?
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
Malcolm, yes, Malcolm.
Was it Malcolm?
He came from the G League, and
I do remember that guy.
Yeah,
it was so fast.
it was fast.
Right,
it was.
It was so fast.
But because like Dr. Lee, she was the face of Vandy, and so when they transitioned to her, it was just so natural, that first of all, she should have had that position, but now that she had at the time that was perfect, that ended up being perfect for her. You know what I mean? And I gotta give definitely much love and a shout out to Dr. Lee just for her stepping in. So when David took me underneath his wing, she took me underneath her wing as well. And once he passed away, she agreed to go ahead and keep on. She kept on shadowing me. I'm sorry. She allowed me to keep on shadowing her. And then she ended up jumping on and say yes, that she'll be a part of my dissertation committee. And when I tell you, she helped me tremendously negotiating and talking to my chair and being able to, talking about, and when I tell you she read every word of my dissertation, she was like,
I believe it.
Here, I'm just like she really cared and she really wanted to see me grow. And man, Dr. Lee is amazing. So I'm so happy she has that position.
Not only she signed up for a podcast too.
Oh yeah,
a beautiful podcast, one of the best podcasts, and she agreed to be on it. So that right there in itself. Was it Women in Athletics that you did?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was amazing. She just for her to agree to be on that,
Yes. Yeah. And for everybody else, I will post that podcast interview that we did. It was absolutely amazing. We did an administrator, a coach, and an athlete, and they all gave their stories about how they just about their stories about being a woman and being a Black woman in athletics, in their journeys and what they went through. So the coach was a 4-time Olympian, Chandra. We had the first African American female SEC athletic director, which was Dr. Candice Lee story, and then we had a 2-time Olympian, Gwendolyn Berry, as she talked about, injustice as a woman, injustice as an African American, and the things they went through. So please, don't be afraid to go ahead and click below and listen to that interview as well. So
we're missing somebody. Want to go in there?
We had an amazing co-host. Her name was Dr. Thank you for reminding me. Dr. Harriet Hamilton, who was the first Black athletic director ever. And we were able to bring her on and have her be a co-host and ask these amazing women questions about their journey and her journey with Title IX. This podcast was hands down. Hands down.
I will be clicking the link below.
Yes, I love it. So now, like, where are you at now? So I'm assuming you're not at Vanderbilt anymore.
Correct. I am now at Tennessee State. So transition now, well, February will make 2 years. Came over as assistant director of development. Was recently this past year promoted to director of development over the department. So I oversee fundraising for all sports in our Junior Tigers Club program.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations.
Oh, great. Yes, and you forgot the D in front of Tennessee State University.
The illustrious, okay? Tennessee State University.
Don't worry about it.
Don't have them jump on me too bad.
I know, right? So how have you liked the transition from a PWI and working at PWI now working at a HBCU?
Honestly, it was a 180 for me, but in a good way, in a positive way, just because I went from a space, like I said, where we were few and far between, to where it's all it's an HBCU, it's all so being not having, I'm in a space now where code switching is, like I said, non-existent, because I can have conversation, because I'm talking to someone that looks like me, has similar mindset, things like that. So that has been, of course, like I said, a 180 and a positive transition, just because, like I said, the comfortability aspect of it.
Yeah.
The familiarity, you're around, your own people, that kind of thing.
Right.
Also say that, it's also come, with its own challenges. Being an HBCU, and of course at Tennessee State, which it's no secret in regards to the 2.1 billion.
Man.
Right.
Again, $2.1 billion.
Yeah, you gotta say that. You got to say that.
So you're talking about that's a lot of funding, and that's hindering what we can do as a university. And
what we could have done.
Exactly what we could have done, what can still be, done.
Yes.
And it's like, you can see that as a result. I'm a department myself. I'm a department of one, but I oversee fundraising for 15 different sports. So you're in a space now where, like I said, I'm coming from Vanderbilt, where you have 6 or 7 people in your development office. You have, 6 or 7 people in your ticket office, 6 or 7 people in your communications team, things like that. To where now it's okay, you've got one or two people here, but that same amount of work has to get done that is getting done at Vanderbilt because Tennessee State is a Division I school and competes, with the exception of football, competes at the same level in every other sport. So it's like you have to do and learn quickly how to do more with less. And so that was the thing for me. I'm coming from a place where our interns could legit be pencil pushers in a sense. We're bringing in interns. We just need you to move stuff, break down because we don't feel like cleaning up. At Tennessee State, our interns have to actively learn how to ask someone for a donation, how to plan an event because we don't have the hands, we don't have the resources allocated, but we still got to raise money,
still got to produce,
still have to get sold. Players, student athletes still have to graduate, but at the same time, you got to do that with your departments of one, your departments of two, your departments of just a couple of people. So that for me, I dove into a role where even as an assistant director, I was the only person in development for athletics. So I was the assistant director, but I was really the director of development, trying to, freshly, because at Vanderbilt, I'll say I wasn't the one making the ask. So I'm learning how to make the ask as an assistant director, but I'm getting thrown into the leadership aspect of it because now I'm the face of fundraising. So it's one of those things where for me, like I said, the 180 was I had to hit the ground running, learning my position, learning the culture, learning TSU, because like I said, you're dealing with a different dynamic. When you go to football games in the SEC, the game is the game. When you're going to an HBCU football game,
is the attraction.
The game is the add-on to everything else that's going on. So and you have to understand that because you can't come in with that SEC mindset of okay, everyone needs to be in. The game is the game. It's like no, you got to understand HBCU. It's a family reunion on Saturday.
Exactly.
You got to entice the fan at the tailgate with the band. You've got to entice them with the concourse, the things going on, the vendors. Then you've got to bring them into the game so that they can watch the show. And so it's a different, you have to, for me, it was learning that. Because like I said, I came undergrad, grad school, PWI. I've been, of course, to HBCU homecomings and things like that. So I know, but you don't know unless you're in it. So it was one of those things, you're seeing it's like, okay, it's a family reunion type of environment. So how do we bring the family reunion inside? How do we bring the cookout into the stands, into the seats? And so how do we get, if we got to do a fish fry to raise money instead of doing a corporate level event downtown that I'm used to seeing, at Vanderbilt, using the Lowe's Hotel, for example, for an event. If we got to have just a fish fry or cookout just to have the family, that's what it is, the family to get together. So that we can have those conversations about what are the needs of the department. So that was the 180 for me, was learning the HBCU culture. But like I said, I love it. I've been happy since I've been here. Even on my hardest days, I love it because I love what I do and who I'm doing it for.
That part.
It's always about that part right there.
Yes, understanding that impact. Man, I know when I switched from Kent State to, you've been to Kent, to TSU, huge difference. And it's so funny because they just had their homecoming. Yay, go Flashes. And I was looking at their, some of my friends, they were posting on their stories about, the get together and all the Black people come in. They got a couple tents. And I'm just like, that is so cute. But baby, we got the whole city. We got a couple tents. We taking over Nashville.
Right, for a whole week.
We got Sunday. Don't come down Jefferson. Don't come down 31st. Don't come down Tiger Bell. None of that. That we got the whole zip code.
The whole. And that was the thing too. I didn't get to experience. I've been in Nashville now for 6 years. I didn't get to experience a TSU homecoming until I started working at TSU, because Vanderbilt typically does their homecoming the same week. So I would be working instead of, Vanderbilt will always have a night game too, or so I would always be working while TSU's homecoming was going on. So last year was my first year actually getting to experience it. And like you said, Sunday to Sunday, it is a takeover the entire city. And you're not getting it back until that following week.
About us on all channels. Steve Harvey, you know what I mean? Like everybody loves TSU's homecoming, and I get it. We just can't help how sweet we are.
Right.
Man,
man, I love it. Anybody who hasn't been at Tennessee State University's homecoming, you missed it this year. But next year, please come. It's usually about the second week of October, and we have the time of our lives. Now, granted, it may start the first week a little bit, you know what I mean? But it's about, it's usually about 2 weeks, because the first week is, TSU homecoming next week. I ain't doing nothing. Don't actually do no work.
Right.
I gotta go shopping and get my clothes for the all-white party and get my
look, because then you got the all-white, then you got the blackout party, then you got
the blackout. You got the parade. Oh, I mean, just so much fun. It's that everybody's having a family reunion all at the same time. I never seen so much amazing Black excellence in one place. I mean, wow.
Yeah, no, that's
I'll say, because I've been to NCAT GHO, their homecoming. They call it greatest homecoming on earth. I've been to Tuskegee. But the difference, TSU's homecoming is in a major city, and they're able to take over a major city for an entire week. It's not a college town. We're talking a major city, and for an entire week, it is nothing but blue downtown, down Jefferson, down 20. It is.
And the city respects it, and that's
and the city respects it. That part, and there's so much rich tradition also when it comes to just the history of the city and the history, like after slavery and how we took over Jefferson. Like, and there's Black-owned businesses on Jefferson. There's a Black-owned bank on Jefferson. Like, it's not just, it's great. Tennessee State, amazing. We got Fisk right down the street. We got Meharry right down the street, the first African American medical school. So, I mean, it's a overall celebration of us.
Right.
Exactly. And that's how we telling them, like, I'm trying to go back to Kent. I am, but I just can't settle for 2-3 tents and no fish fry. They over here eating chili because it's cold.
That part.
I'm gonna make it one of these years. I am, but man, it is a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
I haven't been back to a Troy homecoming since, I think 2018 or something like that. Yeah. I'm I'm looking to make a trip, because next year is our 10-year for me and my line brothers. We'll be celebrating our 10-year next year, so I may make that trip. But it's like it's a different beast. Like you were saying, it's a whole different atmosphere.
What'd you play?
I played Alpha Alpha Turn Incorporated.
Okay, we're running down to our last couple minutes, whatever. But I want to know, what's your future plans? What do you see yourself going 5 years from now? What you got going on?
So first things first, for me, in the short term, graduation in May 2024. I'll be finishing my doctorate education at Tennessee State University. So very excited about that. It's been a long journey, but definitely glad that the end is near. But for me, long term, I'm looking to continue, of course, to work in athletics, continue to move up within my field, assistant athletic director within the development space, and eventually working more senior athletic director when it comes to external relations. At one point, I wanted to be an athletic director, but after kind of watching some of my mentors in that role and the actual demands of it, it's like I kind of want to have my personal life and work life a little bit separate.
In your photos on Facebook at the beach. I mean, you be chilling.
Right.
You don't have a moment. You have a handful of graves.
Look, exactly.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I'm looking to, be an athletic director per se, because I know, that comes with a lot. And like I was saying, I don't want to, long term have to, bring my family to events in order to, feel like I'm spending time. So for me, long term looking to, transition out, maybe, work in consulting now that we have NIL and the transfer portal, or looking in actually, teaching in higher education. So that's, long term where I'm looking to go. But like I said, in the short term, graduation, still working my way up in athletics and in that field. But down the road, eventually, getting out and transitioning out.
What would you like to teach? What would you see yourself teaching?
I would like to stay in sport management. Like I said, higher education, that sport management realm, just because of the familiarity and kind of, giving back in that sense, because I know that's where the majority of student athletes, a lot of them are in those classes. So to be able to say and kind of mentor them through that program, I feel like that's somewhere I could see myself in teaching.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you want to be a mentor. Like we said earlier, there's not like a lot of mentors in college. So those that are willing to step up to the plate, that's, a special thing right there.
It's even more special that you even have the experience. Because a lot of times people don't have the experience, but they want to teach at that level. Right. And it's like, what can you really give those students if you don't have the experience to help back up what you're saying? Like you're going based off of research and not based off of you being an actual practitioner inside the field. And being a practitioner is so important. And knowing what type of battles and obstacles that they're going to end up going through. Once they hit that level and graduate. So I'm definitely happy that you want to enter that area.
Yeah, and not only that, you mentoring will start somebody else mentoring, and it starts to chain. Not to say so a lot of everybody else gets mentoring. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So that trickle down effect. No.
Right. Each one teach one process.
Yes. So, what advice you give to someone? Actually, how about what advice would you give your younger self? Like just starting out, freshman in college. What advice would you let them know about the journey that they're about to take to the man that you are today?
Ooh, that's a good. I could probably go on all the different things I would tell myself or change. But no, I'll actually say one of the things that Vice Chancellor Williams told me when I first even started in the field, but actually it's something that I could have used even while I was in undergrad. And he said, be willing to do the things that no one else is willing to do, and you'll always have a place somewhere. And
I love it.
That was something, like I said, when he told me that, that's something that's resonated with me. And I wish, I had heard that kind of message sooner, just because if you're someone that's always willing to do that groundwork and that stuff that no one else is willing to do, you're going to always put yourself in position to be successful, whether that's, competing, being able to do that extra rep, doing, that extra set, running a little bit longer, or whether that's in life, being, not everyone wants to, clean up after the work event, but if you're willing to do that, and it's funny because even while I was at Vanderbilt, I found myself during COVID in one of those times where I had to learn COVID protocols because I was doing the check-ins for the team when the SEC allowed for football to start back, with practice. I was one of the first to, sign up to do it. And at the time, a lot of people were, getting let go at Vanderbilt and at other institutions, especially in college sports, because the entertainment industry wasn't a thing, during COVID. So it was, find something, find your niche, find your place so that you could keep your job. And so it was his advice I was able, to translate in my work career, but that's something that I would even would want to take back even as early as my freshman year of college is that, be willing to do, what no one else is willing to do, and you'll always, be successful or find your success. And so that's something I would definitely tell my younger self.
I love that. That is amazing.
What advice would you give up and coming athletes right now in this day and age? And knowing since you're in the athletic department, some of the things you've seen that wipe out.
I would say now what I would tell them, learn how to build your brand, one, and two, be coachable. Be coachable at any level, especially now, because even though it's a lot of these kids aren't making the types of money that they're saying in terms of Shedeur Sanders, for example, he's making that money that he's making from NIL, but not everyone's making $2 million. Some people are $1,000 are just getting gear, free gear, things like that. But a lot of times at an 18, 22-year-old, if you're getting anything, it's hard to hear. It's hard to start hearing when you've got 20,000 followers on Instagram that are telling you, oh, you're cold just because you're showing your pictures, your highlight videos. It's hard for them. They start getting deaf, when it comes to, they're making a little money now, NIL, they've got, like I said, they've got the followers. You've got to be willing to be coachable. You've got to be willing to listen and hear, because there's always someone in position that's done this before that can show you how to do it and take what you have and being able to build this brand in this new space to actually take it to the next level.
Yes. With the NIL deals, are they implementing any type of financial literacy program more now, or?
And that's one thing that I will say, and I'd love to highlight that I know at Tennessee State, we are, through our Becoming program, that's one of the things that we're teaching is financial literacy and how to build a brand. Nicholas Clark, our Assistant Athletic Director of Strategic Partnerships, he spearheads that program, but it's all about trying to build a holistic student athlete. And part of that is that financial literacy piece.
Yeah, it has to be,
right? Especially since they're not getting that financial. Normally we take whatever we learned at home when it comes to finances. We normally take that and try to apply it.
Right.
And that's usually not a good idea. Morals, values, standard, fine. Financial, finances. Oh boy, it's been that one thing inside the African American community that's been holding us back.
Big time.
Throwing the money underneath the bed, kind of mentality, which I fully understand and get from the history of us and financial institutions, even us in Black Wall Street. You know what I mean?
The Freedmen's Bank, they took all the Black people's money, millions of dollars back then. Yeah. It's the reason why we don't trust that money's under that.
No, absolutely.
It's always something.
It's always something.
The housing crisis in 2008, when they killed the Black middle class with all the subprime lending loans. It's always something.
It's always something.
They move the goalposts.
And I'll even say on the flip side of that, when it comes to the money flow within the African American community and actually keeping that money flowing within our community, lack thereof. I think it's 6 hours that the Black dollar stays in Black pockets.
I just want to say it's shorter than that. I swear, I think it's shorter.
I think it might be. And that's the thing.
I think it is.
For like 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's
the
shorter though.
Come out, and it's
goes down to that rush hour. We can't get to Walmart.
Exactly.
Picking up to spend the money.
Yeah. Right. And then you look at other communities and how the dollar spent in their community. It's just like, well, what the hell? But then that comes with a whole backstory too. Training. Exactly. We all know the backstory. We ain't got
right. We go a whole nother hour.
Definitely good. Hey, one more question. What type of development skills do you feel like you needed to actually develop in order for you to be successful?
In my field?
In your field.
Would say,
and what you learned in track and field, did it transfer over? Do you believe?
I wouldn't say anything specific outside of, I was able to use like my kind of competitive spirit and that kind of competitive drive and push it in a different direction. So I kind of treat when I have speaking engagements now, those are how I see it. That's meet day for me. So everything I'm doing is preparing for the track meet, because when I'm, at the event, I'm on. So I've got to be the happiest person in the room, most engaging person in the room, making sure that I know everything within athletics so that I can have those conversations. So for me, it was kind of taking those kinds of things from track, the training, that aspect of being able, taking that the competition and treating, work like, okay, it's a game day, time to, turn it on. And treating my day to day like practice. Okay, this is what I need to learn. My public speaking skills. Watching different TED talks so I could learn, how to speak better and be more comfortable in front of an audience. So for me, I said when an individual's more so like utilizing kind of, that aspect, that competitive aspect, and the adrenaline rush that I used to get going down the runway is, that adrenaline rush I feel when I have to speak in front of, a regional conference for TSU. So it's like that's kind of how I was able to kind of channel that.
I love that. So true. Man, so do you have any final thoughts? Any final words you'd like to leave? You know what I mean?
I really appreciate you all having me on. This was a lot of fun, just getting to talk about athletics and our different experiences working within the HBCU space, being in a PWI space. So I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
We really enjoyed you too. We appreciate you coming through the lab.
Yes, coming to the Transformation Lab and learning how you transform your life from being, a student athlete, navigating those waters, especially at a PWI. I understand, I know. And then landing an amazing position, you know what I mean, at Vandy, meeting amazing people there, and then going ahead and going to Tennessee State University. Oh man, I love how who you have become, and I cannot wait to see you in 5 years.
Right.
I mean,
Dr. Myles.
Yes. After I come back and take a class.
Man, that can't come soon enough. Trust me.
Right? I'll tell you now, I ain't doing nothing.
No.
Oh man, but yes, we appreciate you coming
on.
Do.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Come back anytime.
Yeah, exactly. Come back anytime.
Definitely will.
Thanks. All right.
Hey you guys, we really hope you enjoyed that last episode.
And if you're really ready to keep transforming, go ahead and jump into that next lab episode. The one right here. Down here, the link right here.
It's probably over here.
Or there, or here. Link, click. Go ahead. You got it.